Welcome to Football Game Plans FCS Kickoff presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and welcome to our 2016 Patriot League preview. Let's get this preview kicked off with a look at the top 5 burning questions heading into 2016 Patriot League season. The first thing we're going to look at is the gap shrinking between the top and bottom in the Patriot League. I most definitely think so. You have to figure a team with a proud history like Lafayette will begin to turn it around, and if last year is of any indication, it should be once again a tightly contested race to the end. Georgetown got better, Lafayette will be better. Bucknell and Lehigh look really strong this year, so absolutely I think the gap between Fordham, Colgate, and the rest is definitely shrinking. That sort of leads into my next question. Can Lafayette right the ship? Despite their last playoff appearance being in 2013, I do think the Leopards can get things back on track, starting with this season. Head coach Frank Tavini is an excellent coach, and his squad, more in particular the offense, showed a lot of life late last season. You combine that with a strong spring, and there is nowhere to go but up for Lafayette. Can new Fordham head coach Andrew Briner continue to build upwards in the Bronx? Absolutely. He has already been a part of the recent success with that program under former head coach Joe Moorhead. The former offensive coordinator turned head coach, the youngest for that matter at 31 years old, has continuity and familiarity on his side. Fordham did the right thing by promoting from within, and now the biggest challenge for Briner will be to recruit the type of guys that they need to sustain success. Given that he retained the rest of the staff, coupled with the fact that they play an exciting brand of football on both sides, there's no doubting whether or not the Rams will remain good and competitive. Which team or teams pose the biggest threat to the Fordham Rams and also to the Colgate Raiders? I alluded to it earlier by saying that the gap is shrinking within the Patriot League, so I think you have to look at the big 3 teams in the middle. Your Holy Crosses, your Lehighs, your Bucknells. They are the ones that have a shot to stake claim to that #1 spot. I think the Hoyas are taking big time steps forward as a program. Last year I was on a broadcast for 2 games and came away impressed with what I saw. This was a team that was well coached and competed well. They're coming off a promising 2015 season where they were a few plays away from finishing with a 6-5 record, and they had an outstanding recruiting class. So keep an eye on incoming freshman quarterback Isaac Schley. Fly guy, Schley, he looks like a star in the making, has star potential, and when he gets his opportunity to play, he'll be more than ready. So they've recruited well and are coming off a promising season with some good depth. I'd say their progress is going quite well. Let's take a look at some of the big games this year in the Patriot League. September 3rd, Lehigh opens up at home versus Monmouth. That's a huge non-conference tilt and could go a long way in swaying FCS playoff voters when tiebreakers are concerned. Both teams were very talented, and this will be a good one to watch. September 10th, Bucknell travels to Duquesne in another pivotal non-conference matchup. The Dukes knocked off the Bison last year 26-7, so you know Bucknell has revenge on his mind. October 24th, Colgate travels to Richmond in what could be a playoff preview. You could also probably say that this one will have a playoff type feel to it as well. A really good litmus test for both teams. November the 5th, the Fordham Rams and Colgate Raiders battle in the Bronx, and this game was a thriller last year that was decided on the final play, a 2-point conversion attempt that failed by Fordham, so expect the same level of excitement when these two teams face each other. On November the 12th, Holy Cross and Fordham play in a pivotal conference game. To add intrigue to this one, it will be played at Yankee Stadium. This will be a must-see TV game as 2 of the top quarterbacks in Peter Pujols and Kevin Anderson go head-to-head, and you can't talk big games up in the Patriot League without bringing up the game between Lehigh and Lafayette. This was a high-scoring affair last year and should be once again, as you can toss records and logic out the window when these two teams face off. This will be the 152nd meeting between these two rivals that are separated by only 9 miles. We'll be back after this.
1, 2, down. Hit. The game of football has taught me so many things, man. Now, think about the huddle we have right now, right? I tell people this all the time. There's a reason why they call it a huddle. People have been huddling all their lives, trying to find ways to enhance each other's lives. The great teams do that all the time. The great teams do that. The better the huddle, the better the team. And so it's simple, man, how if you huddle for all the right reasons, we wouldn't have Ferguson. We wouldn't have some of the challenges that we have in our society. But as we all know, there's always a moment when somebody doesn't belong in the huddle. And yet we have to continue to move on. We got to continue to play. So the game of life, man, is always starting with the huddle. And for me, I'm lucky enough to know that, by the graces of God, man, it's been a nice huddle. It's been a nice huddle. And if I just keep making sure that he's in front of me, I'm gonna be all right.
Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football, A Love Story, and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Now let's take a look at the conference superlatives for the Patriot League, and we'll begin by unveiling our 2016 All-Patriot team. Looking at the quarterback position, Peter Pujols out of Holy Cross is coming off an excellent season and is a major reason why many are expecting big things from the Crusaders this upcoming year. Pujols was a football game plan preseason All-American after tossing 28 touchdowns to only 11 interceptions and was the leading passer in the conference in 2015. I'm a big fan of the running backs on this list, with Fordham's Chase Edmonds and Lehigh's Dominic Bragalone. Edmonds has been sensational since he stepped foot on campus and has rushed for over 1,600 yards last season at 6.6 yards per carry. This is after rushing for over 1,800 yards as a true freshman at 6.3 yards a carry, and has rushed for 23 rushing touchdowns and 20 rushing touchdowns respectively. I've said this before, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him take home the Peyton Award this year and garner some Heisman Trophy votes in the process. Bragalone became the first freshman in Lehigh history to rush for over 1,000 yards, finishing with 1,008 on the season, and he got better each and every game and provides the balance to the Mountain Hawks' offensive attack. Taking a look at the receiving options on this list, you have to include the fullback H-back Matt Buckman out of Georgetown, who is your quintessential move tight end or H-back in the sense that you can line him up anywhere and be comfortable. John Mataluna is an excellent dual threat option for the Colgate Raiders, excelling as a receiver and also as a returner, and both Brendan Flaherty out of Holy Cross and Troy Pelletier out of Lehigh are the #1 options for their offense. But Faison Odom out of Fordham really is a guy that you need to get to know if you haven't seen him play. He hauled in 37 receptions for nearly 500 yards and 7 touchdowns last season after finally getting his opportunity to see extended time after backing up All-American Dan Light in 2013 and also in 2014. Odom set a school record for touchdowns by a tight end with those 7 touchdowns. The offensive line features 2 outstanding bookends in Julian Davenport out of Bucknell and Zach Duffy out of Lehigh. And Davenport at 6'6", 320 is a 2-time all-conference performer that has a ton of interest from NFL scouts. And Duffy is a guy that is an excellent pass protector for a right tackle and one who should garner a lot of attention as well. Jordy Delmau out of Colgate plays a huge role in the success of the Raiders' ground game. Moving over to the defensive side of football, and you have to be impressed with the front 7. And looking at that defensive line, and both Bucknell defensive linemen, Abdullah Anderson and Ben Schumacher, then you can understand why opponents had problems running the ball versus the Bison last season. Both Anderson and Schumacher helped the Bison lead the Patriot League in run defense last year, as they only allowed 3.8 yards a carry. Both Pat Afriye and Brett Fields showed the ability to get after the quarterback. The dynamic duo combined last year for 17.5 sacks. When you get great play up front, it's the linebackers that reap the benefits. That's why you see Colgate Raider backer Kyle Diner on this list. And Diner put together a remarkable junior season, racking up 78 solo tackles, 129 overall, which put him fourth in the Patriot League. Lehigh's Colton Caslow, only playing in 9 games, averaged 10.6 tackles a contest, and one of the lone bright spots on the Lafayette Leopard squad last year was Brandon Bryant, who ended up with 114 total tackles. 69 of them were solo stops and was a true leader on their defense. In the secondary, these 4 student athletes share a similar trait: toughness. Jihad Preetlow of Fordham, Brian Marine of Bucknell, Luke Ford out of Holy Cross, and Chris Morgan out of Colgate are all defensive backs that aren't afraid to get busy versus the run. Marine led the league in interceptions last year as a freshman with 4. Preetlow is an outstanding coverman and dynamic returner that has also made our list as a specialist. And Luke Ford leads a very underrated Crusader secondary and is looking to close out his collegiate career with a bang. Speaking of the specialists, you can see that Fordham also has a pretty good kicker in McKay Red, and Red was 8 out of 12 on his field goal attempts and 40 of 43 on his extra points. Punter Alec Peachin out of Bucknell, as a freshman last season, booted 10 punts of 50 yards plus, downing 17 inside the 20. And we talked about Preetlow's exploits as a returner, averaging 26.2 yards per kickoff return, and John Mataluna wasn't too far behind with an impressive 22.9 yards per return as well. We'll be back with more of our Patriot League preview after this.
1, 2, down. Stand. Hit.
I think the FCS is really, when you look at it, it's the perfect model for football. Okay, in that as a coach, number one, you deal with Division I, it's great. You deal with a high level of athlete. In our case, you deal with a high level of student. It's extremely competitive football. It's a great environment, but it's also doesn't have some of the trappings that the bigger levels have as far as the business and the money of things. But you know, it's pure football. And as a coach, that's what I like. Is you know, it's about the football. And you know, I think the way we determine our champion is the best playoff system in all of sports. And I think that you can never argue with who the national champion is at the FCS level. And it's just top to bottom the most competitive bracket of playoff sports there is in any of the sports. So you know, if you like the action, I think the quality of play is extremely high. I think the quality of person is extremely high. I think there's some great coaches at our level, and it's attainable to fans too. It's also, you know, you come to an FCS game, you have a little bit more of a close experience to the players. You know, and in our case, the players meet the people in the town. It's right there. They're not kind of like these pros in waiting. You know, you can reach out, you can touch them, you can meet the coaches, you can do that stuff. It's just enjoyable football at a real high level still.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting can help you reach the next level in the amazing world of broadcast and entertainment media.
I've mentored several interns here at the Covino and Rich Show at SiriusXM, and the ones from CSB always stand out to me. They have a knowledge of the equipment, knowledge of editing, what it's like to be in a studio, and that always eliminates a huge learning curve.
Their professional studios give students a hands-on, learn-by-doing approach using equipment used in actual radio stations and TV studios. Visit our website at gocsb.com or call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Start today.
And welcome back to Football Game Plans FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and we are continuing our preview of the Patriot League. Sticking with the look at the conference superlatives, We will now take a look at the league's best by position, starting with the quarterbacks. I believe the Fordham Rams have the best group of quarterbacks in the Patriot League. There's good depth here with guys like Colton Smith and Luke Medlock, but senior signal caller Kevin Anderson is truly special. The 6'2", 195-pound senior in his first season with the Rams after transferring from Marshall tossed an impressive 33 touchdowns to only 10 interceptions and also led Fordham to an upset in the opener versus Army. Anderson is also a dual-threat quarterback that can hurt you on the ground as well. Just ask Holy Cross as he rushed for 115 yards on them last season. I think the sky's the limit for Anderson in his second season at the helm. Staying in the Bronx, the Rams boast the best running back core as well. Chase Edmonds ran for over 1,600 yards last year and is a legit game breaker and a threat to score on every play. You can't undersell what he also brings in the passing game. And although they don't get many opportunities, Kendall Piercy and Jared Brevard are excellent runners in their own right. And Piercy, in my opinion, could start for many teams across the FCS. They form a pretty strong trio for Fordham. I have to give the nod for the best receiving core to the Lehigh Mountain Hawks. Lehigh has one of the best receivers in the Patriot League in Troy Pelletier, who hauled in 78 receptions for 831 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. Both Gatlin Casey and Trevor Sakaras combined for 84 receptions and nearly 1,000 yards. And when you're able to spread the field like that, it makes it very tough to defend. It also opens up your running game as well. The trio, along with quarterback Nick Shevnisky, should once again have a lot of success in 2016. To me, it's a tie for the best offensive line in the Patriot League with Holy Cross and Lehigh. Starting with Holy Cross, all 5 starters returned up front as they were very impressive as juniors. I was at the Albany game last season and Peter Pujols wasn't harassed all throughout the game. That group, led by offensive tackle Hunter Hudgens, is a big reason why Pujols enjoyed his best season as a Crusader last year. For the Mountain Hawks, obviously Zach Duffy is the headliner and the key piece up front, but Tim O'Hara was excellent as a bookend, making all-conference last year. Brandon Short was outstanding at center and was the anchor up front. So again, the common theme with the success of both quarterbacks last year in Pujols and Shevnisky is that their offensive lines were excellent and remain intact for 2016. Another tie for the best defensive line here. This time it's between Bucknell and Colgate. And what's interesting is that both groups attack you in different ways. The Bison are able to dominate inside out, as evident by both Abdullah Anderson and Ben Schumacher, while the Raiders are able to dominate outside in with Patrick and Brett Field. Both teams also have tremendous talent elsewhere. The Raiders' Alex Campbell was an all-conference performer last season, and Bucknell's defensive end Doug Whitlock was steamrolling toward the same accolades before injury limited his season to only 6 games, in which he was still able to rack up 26 tackles, 5.5 TFLs, and 2.5 sacks. We are 3 for 3 with ties here as Colgate and Georgetown share the best group of linebackers. The Raiders fly around the field and to the football at the second level. Kyle Diner, who finished 2015 with 129 tackles, he's the guy that leads them, while his teammate, the 6'5", 245-pound Charles Kearney, was just as excellent, finishing with 9 TFLs and 79 total tackles. The Hoyas were very impressive last season defensively. Linebacker Leo Lockery finished 3rd on the team in tackles with 83, 7.5 TFLs, and also 2.5 sacks. Now, joining him this year is an athletic group of juniors and sophomores that got their feet wet last season and impressed in limited action. Guys like Matthew Apuzzi, Javion Butler, and Matthew Deal will be able to step in significant roles and continue the success we saw the Hoyas have defensively at that level last year. In the secondary, the Colgate Raiders stand alone as the best group in the Patriot League. These are guys that are excellent in coverage and versus the run. Chris Morgan, Joe Figueroa are great versus the run. Those two combined for 166 tackles. Christian Hardegree finished 5th on the team in tackles, but also provides good coverage ability. And keep an eye on rising sophomores Ben Hunt and Courtney Mims. Fordham has the best special teams unit in the Patriot League. Having a guy of the caliber of Jihad Pretlow returning kicks gives the Rams a chance for a big play each and every time. Sophomore Corey Cattle chipped in with over 350 yards on both kickoff and punt returns, and kicker McKay Red is as dependable as they come. It's never too early to take a peek at prospects for the 2017 NFL Draft, so here are some prospects that you want to keep an eye on this upcoming season. Both quarterbacks are worthy of keeping an eye on, and that's Holy Cross's Peter Pujols and Fordham's Kevin Anderson, and scouts are wanting to see if last year's successes were an aberration or if they both can replicate their impressive 2015 seasons. Anderson's teammate tight end Faison Odom at 6'8", 245 will draw a ton of attention based off how he played last year and the immense potential and the upside that he possesses. But the bulk of the Patriot League prospects this year are found in the trenches. Bucknell's Julian Davenport could find himself at a premier postseason All-Star game come January. Zach Duffy's ability in pass pro is going to garner a lot of attention from scouts. And if you look on the other side of the ball, defensive lineman Brett Field at 6'5", 275, with his ability to not only play the run but also apply pressure, will have him firmly etched on many pro scouts' watch lists as we start the season. Rounding out this list is Jihad Pretlow, the tremendous corner and returnman for the Fordham Rams, and he also has above average ball skills, which makes throwing his way a high risk if you're an opposing quarterback. We'll take a quick commercial break and be back to wrap up our 2016 Patriot League preview.
New York City is the largest market for broadcast media. It's the epicenter for the TV and radio industry. If you ever had a dream of working in the thrilling broadcast world, then make it a reality by going to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. CSB has helped numerous people get a job with hands-on training and a learn-by-doing mentality. You will learn all of the high-tech equipment in the TV and radio studios. From hosting your own radio show, to being a news or sports anchor, operating a camera in the TV studio, or editing audio and video, the choice is yours. Graduates from CSB have gone on to work at some of the major companies in the industry. To get more information, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out at GoCSB.com. Your road to success starts here at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The unique thing about the FCS is if it puts you in a position where if you win, you can keep playing. That it's competitive. It is Division I football, and it's also been able to cross conferences. I think within our league we play alongside the Ivy League, alongside the CAA, alongside the NEC, and it really gives you an opportunity each and every Saturday to prove yourself. The other thing is that these schools within this league are putting people out that are student athletes, that they'll achieve one of the better educations in the country, biased here at Bucknell. But we're also in a position where we can participate and play against some of the FBS schools. Last year we played against Army, and a couple years we played against Temple. To be able to judge yourself in terms of what you've done with your program, what you've done with your team against those teams that are, the more preeminent teams in the country. And that I think we all have to realize that a football field, when it comes down to it, it's 53.3 yards wide and 120 yards long. Regardless of where you're playing, that's the field. And that's what's exciting about college football, that when you get out there on a Saturday, and I keep telling my team, and I've always said this to my teams, they might be yelling, all right, regardless of who they're yelling for, make sure that you know they're yelling for you.
And welcome back to our 2016 Patriot League preview, and we're in the home stretch, and it's time for our predictions. The Lafayette Leopards check in at number 7, and I think last year's 1-10 record, which was the worst season in head coach Frank Tabini's 17-year tenure there, was an aberration. If history is of any indication, expect to see dramatic improvement this year from the Leopards. Lafayette played at two extremes last year. The offense was bad and the defense couldn't stop anybody. And as the season progressed, Both sides started to work toward the middle, which bodes well for this season, and they need to start the season in the middle as their non-conference September slate is a challenge. And if they can come out of September at 2-2 heading into conference play, that'll bring confidence, which could lead to a better play throughout the rest of the season. Next are the Georgetown Hoyas, and last year the Hoyas were 4-7 overall, 2-4 in the Patriot League, and quite honestly, they were a few plays away from having a winning record. This team is building in the right direction and has a really good nucleus returning, especially on the defensive side of football. Keep an eye on defensive lineman Brennan Sawicki, who was sensational last year as a true freshman. Sawicki finished with 29 tackles and 3.5 TFLs. The biggest losses were at quarterback and running back, and that's where you have concerns and have to take that wait-and-see approach with the Hoyas as this season kicks off. If Tim Barnes is able to pick up right where Kyle Nolan left off, then the Hoyas could find themselves with a winning record for the first time since 2011. I have the Lehigh Mountain Hawks at number 5, and I don't have any concerns at all about their offense. Next to Fordham, they have probably the most exciting and impressive offensive attacks in the Patriot League. Quarterback Nick Shavnisky, running back Don Bragalone behind that offensive line with that trio of receiving options should be able to light up scoreboards once again. The question is on the defensive side of the ball, where the Mountain Hawks gave up 219 points, which was second to last in the conference, and also gave up 451 yards a game. I think if their defense can just be average and not terrible, they'll win the league or at least grab an at-large bid in the FCS playoffs. The Holy Cross Crusaders have a lot of reasons for optimism this year. Anytime you can return your all-conference quarterback, leading receiver, and entire offensive line, you have a reason to be both excited and optimistic. Now, the next step you want to see the Crusaders make this year is improvement in the running game. Pujols is an excellent athlete and does a lot of aiding the running game, but you still would like to see one of those tailbacks and Gabe Guild or Dequan Walker take full control of the position and bring that balance to the offense. Now, defensively, Holy Cross should be solid versus the run once again, but can they defend in the secondary is the biggest question. In a league where you have teams that can air you out like Fordham and Lehigh, and in some respects Georgetown, you have to pump the brakes a bit when projecting these guys going to the season. How quickly can they overcome those losses in the secondary will be a question. Also, can they find a consistent pass rush will be another thing to keep an eye on in 2016. Bucknell checks in at number 3. Head coach Joe Susan enters 2016 armed with arguably the best defense in the league. The Bison are extremely tough up front and at the second and third levels. And obviously, the big bison in the room is the offense. What they have going for them is strength in the trenches and experience at the skill positions. The reason why I have them slightly ahead of both Holy Cross and Lehigh is that the Bison played a lot of youth last season, and that expected growth and continuity, especially on the flanks, will be crucial. Senior wide receiver Will Carter is a playmaker, and the Bison have played 3 freshmen last year, led by Andrew Hours, that'll be experienced sophomores now. Now, their play, along with senior quarterback RJ Nitty, should be much better by default. Also, keep an eye on running back CJ Williams, who missed a good portion of the year with injury. He's now healthy and should easily top 1,000 yards this season. Bucknell is a dangerous squad that could be in the right place at the right time to be right in the thick of the Patriot League title race. The Fordham Rams, offensively speaking, should be as explosive and as dynamic as we've grown to know them to be over the years. Also add in the fact that offensive coordinator Andrew Briner is now the head coach should further strengthen that notion. The questions are on the defensive side of the ball. The Rams defense lose All-American linebacker Stephen Hodge, who is essentially a strong safety that excelled in pass coverage. I do think they'll be really good in the secondary with Jihad Preetlow, Caleb Ham, and Marcus Fulmore back there. Linebacker Noah Fitzgerald was excellent in pass coverage as a freshman last year, picking off 4 passes. You have Nico Thorpe, who's another good backer that can rush the passer, but my concern is with the pass rush and the defense, the rush defense, Outside of Josh Klecko, I have some questions up front. The Rams couldn't get to the quarterback with consistency, which led to teams being able to sustain drives and also generate big plays at inopportune times. If those questions get answered early, then this team should definitely roll. New head coach Andrew Briner has a pretty good football team on his hands and should experience a lot of success this year. And finally, the Colgate Raiders top our preseason predictions for the Patriot League. The Raiders are both well coached by Dan Hunt and are also a well-disciplined bunch. This is a group that is all about trench warfare. Colgate was the best rushing offense in the Patriot League last year and finished 3rd in run defense. Quarterback Jake Melville was very efficient in the passing game, tossing 11 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, but his damage is also done on the ground. Melville ran for over 1,000 yards last year. He and James Holland make an excellent 1-2 punch on the ground. Wide receiver John Mataluna and Alex Greenewald make an excellent duo on the flanks, which balances out their offense. The defense is strong at every level. They can stop the run, they can rush the passer, and they can also take the ball away. Colgate has, in my opinion, the most complete team in the Patriot League. The question is whether or not they can remain hungry or get caught resting on their laurels of 2015. There shouldn't be a reason why they don't get back to the playoffs with a chance to make an even deeper run this season.
It's different, you know. It's I think it's a little bit smaller, obviously, than the FBS. I mean, you're going to get more attention to detail. I mean, you could go to a bigger school, you know, Ohio State, Florida State, USC, and you could be one of those, you know, 90 players that they have on scholarship, but you know, how much are you going to play? You know, how much attention to detail? You know, are you going to be able to graduate in 4 years? Those are things. Obviously, I didn't work at one of those schools, but those are some of the questions you got to ask yourself before you step foot on a campus or make decisions. You come to the FCS, and I think, number one, if you're that good, you're going to play. And they're going to find kids. I mean, you look at the second pick in the NFL draft this year, the quarterback from North Dakota State, and you go look at any one of those kids, I think any one of those kids could play at an FBS school. And they just happen to be in an FCS school who is getting looked at. They just won another national title. It is great football at this level. Maybe not as good as, you know, the Pac-10 or the Big 12 or, you know, the Big 10, one of those type of schools, but it is still outstanding college football where kids are getting recognized. They're still getting drafted in the NFL. They're going to graduate probably in 4 years, maybe not at a big, huge institution. And the biggest thing is I think that you'll get a chance for some more exposure being on the field and playing. You know, the bigger schools, you got to look at, you know, are you going to play and how soon? Or do you go to an FCS school and maybe you start for 4 years, you become an All-American and you get your chance, other than maybe playing 1 or 2 years at an BS school. But I think the FCS has done a great job promoting its football the last 3 years. Nowadays with the social media and everything that goes on, it's taken off. And again, there's a lot of schools in you know, our level right now, like North Dakota State. I bet you any one of those kids would be playing at a bigger school if they wanted to be, but they chose North Dakota State for a reason, and it was the right fit, and they got exposure, and they just won how many national championships, and the quarterback was the second pick in the NFL draft this year. So there is a chance. I don't think you have to go to a Division 1A school or an FCS school just make it to the NFL. The FCS has a lot of great teams and a lot of great players, and those kids do get looked at, and maybe they play, like we said, instead of 1 year or 2 years at the FCS level, they're starting for all 4 years at the FBS level. You look at some of the schools in the Northeast this year, Harvard, Dartmouth, Villanova, New Hampshire. I mean, all those schools have been in Fordham. I mean, they've all been in the playoffs, and they've all had kids that got drafted or have played. They've had a successful, New Hampshire's been in the playoffs, I think, 11 years in a row or 12 years in a row, and Villanova, same thing. I mean, those are great schools academically. Those kids graduate in 4 years, and they played for 4 years and made a name for themselves and got themselves in position. So I think the FCS is doing a great job of what they're doing in terms of promoting our level of football, and I just hope it continues that way. And I think when kids step on some of those campuses and see what's in front of them, that they, you know, they're a little shocked, and they can be very happy at a school like that as well.
So that's it for our 2016 Patriot League season preview. For more of our FCS season previews, visit our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Make sure to check out the FCS Opening Drive radio show every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time with host Luke Diamond and myself. You can download the app for free on Google Play and also on iTunes. The call-in number is located on the screen right now, and also where you can listen online. And be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. Also check out the website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff.